Dr. Ambedkar brought out the main feature of the inequality of caste system in 5 features. I won't discuss it everything. But the caste system is division of people into groups. But each of the group is assigned rights, social, cultural, and economic right. Doesn't matter, right are assigned, but those rights are assigned in an unequal manner, and they are divided in a gradient manner. So he developed a concept of graded inequality. So the caste system is based on the principle of graded inequality, and economic inequality is a major component. And economic inequality essentially means that some have more economic right to property, right to business, right to employment, right to wages, right to human resource development and education. And the untouchable who are at the bottom of the caste hierarchy of the practical nothing. Participants did not have right to land, right to business, except holding occupation, no right to education. So basic economic right, property right, which are the source of your development, the untouchable are denied in the caste system. There are 3 people who have written on economics of caste system. Prof gave the first theory of economics of caste system and American economics. Then Scholarly from Minnesota University, he developed the economic theory of caste system. And then Clark, who was in Cambridge University. There are only 3 people who have developed the economic theory of caste system. None of the Indian economics ever touched caste system as an economic institution. That shows the biases of Indian economics towards the caste. And these people come closer to the understanding of what caste is. Now, so you can see that the inequality that you find in Indian society, and particularly deplorable conditions that you find, has a roots in the caste system through the denial of economic right to the Dalit. And he brought out quite clearly. No access to sources of income, no access to human capital, and slavery, forced labor, bonded labor, lower wages. These are all economic features he has brought out. And therefore he argued that the caste system is the economic distribution is dialectical distribution. He has taken the note of Dr. Radhakrishnan, our former Prime Minister, who said that the civilization should be measured by the length of the civilization. And since Indian civilization is the longest surviving civilization, it must have something strong. Dr.B.R.Ambedkar says that the length cannot be the measure of strength of the civilization. The plane at which the civilization survived should be the indicator. 500 years of Mughal rule, 150 years of British rule, that's what he used. 750 years is not the dignity of is not the strength of the civilization. So the plane at which the civilization persists is the indicator that he has used, and caste system therefore is a dysfunctional in nature. It has brought down, it has increased immense inequality, but it has also affected economic growth. Dr. Ambedkar did not produce a book, Economics of Caste System, but if you look at different places, his vision is much ahead of those we have now produced economic theories of caste discrimination in the nation of caste in India. And caste is a dysfunctional institution, not because it has created economic equality, but it also hampered our economic growth. And there are several essays in which you find selectively his interpretation of impact of economics of caste system on economic growth. Dr. Nanchiri has mentioned some of the points. But he had that flashes. You look at the alienation of caste, you look at the unique feature of social order, essential feature of caste system. And if you put all that together, 3 points are very important. The neoclassical economics or modern economics is based on the fact that the private economy will be efficient and you will ensure the higher growth and optimum growth if certain conditions are met. And what are those conditions? Those conditions are, the prime condition is that the factor should be mobile. Labor should be allowed to move from one occupation to another occupation. capital should be flexible. Capital should move from one investment area occupation to another area based on the rate of return. If you find one particular occupation is giving you 20% rate of return compared to other occupation, you will move on. So the mobility of the factors of production is the key for the economic growth. And factor became mobile from one occupation to other, labor became mobile from one occupation to another occupation, and they keep on moving till the return in all occupation is same, identical, so there is no incentive to move. The industrialist will not move from one occupation to another occupation to the rate of return will be same. That is called general equilibrium. General equilibrium is reached when the rate of return on all heads is similar. Now here is a caste system which put restriction on the mobility of the labor and restriction on the movement of the capital. There are restriction on employment. You cannot take occupation of other than your own caste. If you do that, there is punishment. You cannot enter into other business. You cannot start the business, which is debarred for you. So capital remains segmented, and your segmented market. You do not have a competitive and open market. And it is in that sense that both these economists and Dr.B.R.Ambedkar also argue that the caste system provide economic outcome which is less than optimum, Pareto optimum in economics. Less than the maximum that will be So caste as an economic institution is harmful institution. It leads to underdevelopment, lesser growth and Dr. has mentioned that caste has effect on unemployment. It is in the negation of caste, Dr.Ambedkar very clearly that the high caste refuse to take the employment in the occupation which are done by the low caste. He or she will be preferred to remain unemployed rather than take the occupation of the low caste. You ask a Brahmin or a higher caste, would you take the job of a sweeper? He will say, no, I would prefer to be unemployed rather than take a job of a sweeper. This is a voluntary unemployment of the person not willing to take occupation of others. There is involuntary unemployment for untouchable. That they want to take occupation of any other cause, they want to work in any other occupation, but they are not allowed. They are only allowed in some of the physical labor work. As a result, what happens? This voluntary and involuntary unemployment put together lead to lot of higher unemployment. I have seen the unemployment rate of scheduled caste for 2012. The unemployment rate for the scheduled caste is about 7.5%. For OBC, about I think it is about 6%. For others, it is 4 point something. Average is around 5%. So you can see that the unemployment rate of the scheduled caste is several points higher than that of others. Part of the reason is discrimination in employment. So let me stop it here. Dr. Ambedkar analyzed the economics of caste system and discovered that the economic inequality and the situation of Dalit was deplorable simply because of the caste economics. And of course, additionally, untouchability. He has also examined the aspect of untouchability. There are other reasons. I don't have a time. Dr. Manchari has made a mention to it that you are not allowed to take a job of your choice, an incentive. Job is decided well in advance by caste. The private capitalist economy function on incentive. Your preference, and that is not allowed here. Preferences are decided at the birth. In fact, if I remember correctly, Dr. Ambedkar, when he submitted the first memorandum to the South Bureau Committee, there is a mention in the discussion, not in the interview, he said, he quoted the case of economic discrimination among many others, that a Mahan woman was arrested in the city of Bombay for selling the water meter. She was taken to police custody and she was told that by law, Bahar cannot sell vegetable and fruits because they are polluting caste. So you can see the economic restriction on visitors. Now this is how we analyze the caste. The roots of economic inequality are in the caste system. Now let us come to the ways. What are the ways that for economic development and equitable development, and that is very important. I quickly now come to that aspect. I want to make one point and then I go close to me. If you look at Dr. Ambedkar's writing, the platform and the justification that he has offered for a particular kind of economic development is not based on the fact that there is a lot of poverty around, there is the fact that there is a lot of income disparity around, there is the fact that there is a lot of malnutrition. Of course, that is the outcome of the economic inequality, there is no doubt about it. But his entire argument for a particular kind of economic development and for equitable development is based on right. The people began to talk right-based approach to development. Dr. Ambedkar began right-based approach in 1920 in his first memorandum to Sukhadeo. He didn't argue poverty and income distribution as a basis for whatever he had proposed. It was the right. And he developed entire approach for the affirmative action policy, for particular economic development, for land reform and others based on the right considerations. If you look at the first memorandum that he submitted to Saudi, second memorandum to Simon Commission in 1929, the revised memorandum in Roundtable Conference in 1931 and 31, then the paper that he presented in Canada, he didn't go, he sent NCUR to make a presentation, but it was a consolidation of his memorandum in Roundtable Conferences. And then of course proposal to cabinet mission and final the state and minority. If you all take this, is arguing specific policies of affirmative action and economic development on the basis of right. That individuals have certain fundamental rights and civil rights, and these rights are violated in the capitalist economy based on private ownership of production. These are violated in the caste system and economics of class system, and that is how he grounded all his argument. That has to be understood. 44% 50 years later, people are now began to talk about right-based approach to development. He began it in early 20s. Now, what are his solutions? To cut it short, we are already 12 o'clock, I'll take another 10 minutes. Cut it short. In fact, when I read him, he was in a situation where he analyzed the problem. And he sees immense poverty and malnutrition, lack of resources. But he doesn't have help from economic theory. He doesn't have much help from social. He argued how the rich face economic discrimination in market, in labor market, land market, in business. In South Belo memorandum, he argued that they are not allowed in business, they are not allowed in military, they are not allowed in police, but also in business. And he developed his concept of caste discrimination in market. And the economic theory of discrimination around race and gender came here, 1956, Becker, then Arrow, and then a whole lot of European economists. And he traveled out to India. No, even today, no university in the country except Delhi School of Economics, and I think Ambedkar University Lucknow teaches course in economics and discrimination. See that. Congratulate her. Now, he did not have any help, and so he developed his own concept of this concept of economic discrimination, market discrimination, and the solution. But again, he developed in the context of rights. He didn't develop in the context of other consideration. Now, there are two solutions that he has given, because I am cutting short. All his memorandum gives you an insight of his thinking to find out the solution. He was a man of solution. He will analyze the problem, but solution was very important for him. When Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru submitted the first resolution of aims and objective of Indian Constitution, what objective and aims we should have before we write down the Constitution, and he was the first person to speak on that, and he said that the objectives are noble: economic equality, social equality, justice, liberty, freedom. But he he said, I'm so disappointed that there are no solutions, there are no means to achieve this equality. And how can you achieve equality unless your land is nationalized and industrialized? So he really criticized the Nehru resolution because there was no solution, they were pious over. And therefore, he tried to give the solution each time. Let me discuss very briefly. First, I gave the solution for economic development. And second, then I go for inequality and inequality. In economic development, he had a solution. Even if we ignore all his writing, DSc thesis, PhD thesis, and 2 theses for masters, which deals with the issues of that time: exchange rate, monetary policy, public expenditure policy, revenue policy. Even if we ignore that, there are certain writings of Ambedkar which gives you a theory of economic development, and a very sound theory of economic development. What are those writings? I briefly mention and then I'll give the main point. Some of those have been already pointed out by that. First paper is, of course, Small Holding in India, published in 1980. The issue was the problem of small holding. Then second is reconstruction plan. I was asked to write a book on Ambedkar's roles and water and power policy by the Central Water Commission. They gave me a proposal, and I say, I read Dr.B.R.Ambedkar very carefully, but I have not seen his role in water and policy except some writing here. He said, no sir, we have this paper, some of the paper. So I accepted 45,000 rupees, collected some material from here and there, but there it emerged. He almost emerged as a founder of India's water and power policy. Then I talked to the chairman of the Central Water Commission. I said, you don't do a single thing without writing on the paper. Why? How come Damodar, Hirakud, your own office, the chair on which you are sitting, it is written there, pink, the organization that Dr.B.R.Ambedkar set up. Do without fighting. He was a gentleman called Joseph from Nagpur. And he said, he understood what I was saying. He said, okay, another 40,000 and 6 more time. And I will give all the fights for. I had the access to the record book. It's water and power. I entered and I saw those documents. I only got 1,000 pages of it. And you see the Dr.B.R.Ambedkar's lecture and comments and everything. In that book where I presented water and power policy, I gave Dr.B.R.Ambedkar's 5 lecture on water and power policy in toto to convince people, because they will not believe how can Ambedkar also contribute to water and power policy. But I have given 5 of them, I have given letters, I have given signature. The important point that I want to tell you, forget about water and power at the moment, that in 1942 when he became a minister, the Britain and the war countries developed the Marshall Plan for Europe. Entire infrastructure in Europe was destroyed. So they developed a master plan, but they developed a rehabilitation plan for those countries who had helped the England and others. And India being one, the British government said that you have a rehabilitation plan, the soldiers will come back, they will have to be re-employed. The factories that are producing war equipment will have to be converted into industry which will produce consumption goods, develop a rehabilitation plan. And all the ministers will remember Dr.Ambedkar was one of them. He was the only economist who could understand what is planning. And I was surprised to see those all documents of reconstruction plan. Water policy, power policy came later, but planning for India. And what they did, they converted this rehabilitation plan into a restructured plan, economic restructured plan. And you could see the impact of Ambedkar's thinking literally on everything. In 1980 paper, they produced those ideas on economic development. He applied those ideas to economic plan. That was the first economic plan, remember me? It was quietly transferred to the first 5-year plan, but never Dr.Ambedkar, their effort was recognized. I don't know why. So you could see his views. Now, I would like to say that he developed a theory of economic development in 1918. What is that economic theory?